This is a poorly painted Art Deco dresser that I found for just $12 in the thrift store recently, and I can't wait to share this dramatic transformation with you. You see, I thought I knew what to expect when I peeled back the layers of paint from this old dresser, but this time I was surprised by what I actually found. It doesn't have to be a furniture project, but imagine a challenge of your own. One where you committed the time, pushed through the frustration, and slowly built the skills you needed to make something just a little better than the way you found it. Maybe it wasn't perfect, maybe it took a little longer than you expected, but above all, you didn't quit when it got difficult. And honestly, that's what this one is all about. My name is Barry, and it's good to be with you again. To be more specific, this is a 3-drawer, waterfall-style, streamlined Art Deco dresser likely from the 1930s, and it still has the original Bakelite handles, but more on that later. One of the first steps when restoring an old piece like this is the disassembly, which includes removing the drawers and the pulls. This is an opportunity to assess any damage and begin to develop a game plan. And I'll also test the paint for lead before I start. As I brush on the Clean Strip chemical stripper to remove the paint, I want to share something with you. As this channel continues to grow, thanks entirely to the support of so many loyal viewers, I want to make sure I'm always transparent with you. This video does include a short sponsored segment, and I often briefly share information about the tools I use in my shop. This helps me keep doing what I love for a living. I never want to deceive you or sneak something in you're not expecting. Here's something I want you to know. I only agree to brand deals for products or services that I actually use, and I always retain full creative control of the videos. For this particular sponsorship, I've decided to include a unique challenge just for you, one that I think you'll really enjoy. The chemical paint remover has had about 30 minutes to work, and I'll use number 2 steel wool and a scraper to begin removing the paint. I use a variety of metal scrapers and plastic spatulas for this step, and that's okay, so long as I'm careful not to gouge the thin layers of veneer. The goal here is to use the steel wool to scrub off most, but not all of the paint. This afterwash product will help neutralize and remove the chemical stripper. For the hard-to-reach areas, I'll use fine brass or vinyl brushes to scrub off the paint. When working with this style, it's especially important to use caution when scraping over the waterfall contour, which is also thin veneer. I collect all of the paint and the waste in old paint cans. The top is now ready for sanding, so I'll move on to removing the paint from the sides and the front. I'm not sure if this was painted for a child's nursery, but thankfully the previous owner did not paint the detailed base of this dresser. I expected to find some kind of unique designs on the drawer fronts, but certainly not this, so watch how these beautiful inlays and patchwork designs emerge as I continue working. As I continue uncovering the beauty beneath all this paint, I want to try something fun in this video that I haven't done in a while. So let's see how many times you can spot this small brass bowl during this sponsored segment. Today's video is sponsored by Craftsy, and I want to use this opportunity to give you a sneak peek at one of my next restoration projects. The project is already completed, and it's a rare antique watchmaker's bench. If you've been following along over the last several months, you'll know I've really been focusing on building out my dream workshop, organizing and making room for the forever pieces in my shop. Pieces that are not only functional and provide adequate storage for all my tools and supplies, but also ones that carry a rich history that I can maybe one day pass on to my children. With Craftsy, I've been so grateful for the structured classes and videos that have helped me learn about a variety of hobbies and skills. Craftsy is this amazing online community where millions of crafters, makers, and DIY enthusiasts find creative inspiration, advance their skills, and learn new ones along the way. Craftsy offers over 2,000 classes in over 20 popular categories like quilting, sewing, knitting, painting, photography, cake decorating, woodworking, and more. One of my other hobbies is refurbishing old cast iron skillets, and the last few times I worked with Craftsy, I used their classes to learn new techniques and recipes for cooking with cast iron skillets. This antique watchmaker's bench requires detailed repairs, and I've been referring often to the videos on Craftsy related to finding better, safer ways to use my router table. I believe many of my viewers, like me, are creative makers and will likely understand that over time, your workspace slowly develops to suit your own specific needs. Through that process, you hopefully discover new ways to be more organized and ultimately more efficient. So if you've been thinking about trying something new, or just want to get better at something you already love, join Craftsy. They're constantly adding new classes, and there's seriously something for everyone. And here's the best part. The first 1,000 of you to scan the QR code, or click the link in the video description, get a full year of Craftsy Premium for just $1.49. It's totally worth it, and a great way to invest in yourself. Thanks again to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. I'm sure that challenge wasn't easy, so the timestamps and locations of the brass bowl will be listed in my pinned comment for this video. Here's a quick look at most of the sanding supplies I used for this project. To repair some of the small sections where the veneer is missing completely, I'll apply an epoxy wood filler. This dries quickly, so to keep it malleable, I'll add in some wax wash remover. As I spend time working on this old furniture, it's not lost on me that during the early years following production of so many of these Art Deco furniture pieces, major historical events were taking shape around the world.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flag, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
While waiting for the epoxy repairs to dry, I'll sand other parts of the dresser using 150 grit sandpaper and the Surf Prep 3x4 sander. The various sponge-like pads gently conform to the profile and help prevent damage while sanding. Once the epoxy is dry, I'll begin sanding it back with a hand sanding block using 150 grit and 220 grit sandpaper. I'm using this project to continue practicing refinishing skills that are new to me. For some of the repairs, I used a walnut-colored epoxy filler, but this time I'll also try light oak-colored epoxy, since the book match veneer has a variety of colors. Regarding where I learned some of these techniques, I feel a responsibility to give credit where it's due. Not only have I learned a lot from Aaron Moore's refinishing book, Revive and Refine, but I've also learned a lot from a YouTube channel I recently discovered, Art Deco Furniture. Not only do these guys present their restoration work in a way that's easy to understand, but they continue to find new ways to restore, repurpose, and reimagine Art Deco furniture. So check them out and tell them Barry sent you. By watching some of their amazing work, I decided to try this color of traditional oil-based penetrating stain, Colonial Maple. It helped tie all the grain patterns together while still showcasing all the unique contrasting wood tones. Here's something I mentioned in my last Art Deco restoration video. Art Deco furniture designs are some of my favorites, and at the peak during the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, Many of these ornate pieces were inspired by the era's boldest innovations: streamlined locomotives, gleaming automobiles, and the towering skyscrapers that reshaped city skylines. They weren't just functional, they were futuristic, a blend of craftsmanship and ambition that captured the spirit of progress. I'll attempt to raise the grain and iron out some of the dents on the drawer faces. This can be done with a traditional iron and a white cotton cloth. I'll pass the iron over the damaged areas for no longer than 5 to 10 seconds at a time until I begin to see progress. These hand sanding blocks were a gift from a viewer, and they worked well for sanding the base of this dresser. Once on its side, I cleaned, sanded, and made a few minor structural repairs to the bottom of the dresser. I also cleaned and sanded the back side of the dresser. I believe many of the trim pieces are solid ash, a lighter colored species, so the absorbed paint is especially visible in these areas. I'll sand most of it out, but this will also be concealed following the staining and color matching. Prior to staining, the final sanding is done with hand sanding blocks and 220 grit sandpaper. Sanding in the direction of the wood grain, mostly, will help reduce any small swirl marks left behind from the power sander. I'll wipe on the traditional oil-based penetrating stain using a foam brush, then wipe back each section immediately with shop rags. I was first afraid of the stark contrast between the light ash trim and the darker walnut veneer, but this will come together nicely following several coats of the final finishes during the next step. First, I need to address these handles. I'll begin by bending the metal back so these sit flush against the face of the drawers. I then cleaned the Bakelite with a glass cleaner, but quickly realized I could take this a step further and remove the Bakelite altogether using a small Dremel tool. After discovering all the dirt on the other side, I'm glad I took the time to do this. These pulls are magnetic and are likely just plated steel. My plan was to spray the steel with a metallic lacquer, but after polishing one handle, I liked the outcome and decided to keep the patina, so I protected these with just a few coats of clear lacquer. To secure the Bakelite back to the handles, I used superglue and sprayed on an accelerator to help this dry quickly. I'm going to protect this dresser by spraying on a sealer and a clear satin lacquer. With 89% humidity, it's important to add a splash of blush retarder. This will slow down the drying process and allow moisture to escape. Any trapped moisture could give this piece a cloudy finish. For a long time, using an HVLP sprayer to apply finishes was intimidating. Truthfully, it's not that difficult with an adequate air compressor and a $20 to $30 HVLP sprayer. Keep in mind this workshop is simply a 2-car garage, so spraying outside will certainly present risks. Windy conditions may trap small dust particles, and bugs may land in that beautiful coat of lacquer while it's still drying. The sealer dries quickly, and once the first few coats are on, I can begin what I think is the most difficult part, mixing powder stains to match the grain patterns and colors where the epoxy was applied. This is yet another skill that requires patience and practice. With each new color, I'll spray a light coat of sealer. Some areas turned out great, but I think I may have made other damaged areas look worse than if I had just left them alone. As you may see, what I learned from the first attempt was to use the wider brush to create longer brush strokes for the base color. After another coat of sealer over the repairs, I'll gently sand the surface with a 320 grit sanding sponge, then clean the surface with the wax wash remover. The final coat is Finisher's Choice Clear Satin Lacquer and is sprayed on the same way, so I'll leave you with this. 4 years ago, I didn't know how to do any of this. It's why I'm convinced you can do this if you want to. Back then, all I saw was an old dresser. I couldn't tell you what kind of wood it was, how it was built, or whether it could even be saved. The idea of walking away from a stable career in healthcare to fix broken furniture in my garage was terrifying. But looking back, I think what scared me the most wasn't failure. It was choosing a path that felt less important, one that might even seem foolish through the eyes of some, but others patiently stuck by my side with each new step. For that, I want to say a heartfelt thank you. I'll be traveling the country in the coming weeks, but there will still be a restoration video for you every weekend. My name is Barry, and as always, thank you for joining me. Goodbye for now.